Hi, my name's Natalie, and this is my Module 5 Sociology assignment. Today we're going to be covering 3 different sections. We're going to start off with this first section here, and this question is, explain why you think that the gender gap in pay exists all over the world, providing a specific example to back your reasoning. So let's just talk about what gender gap in pay is. So this is just the average difference between the wages for men and women who are working. There is non-adjusted pay gap, which is just the overall difference in pay for women and men. Right now, the average female's annual salary is 79% of the average male. And then adjusted pay gap, it just shows similar difference in pay. So this takes into consideration the hours worked, the occupation chosen, and the education and experience. So either way, women are still getting paid less than men are, which is not fair. Women are demanding to get equal pay for the equal work that's being performed. So just a couple percentage-wise of what we're looking at. So in South Korea, the woman is making 65 cents per every dollar that the man makes. And then in the United States, women are making 81 cents per every dollar that a man makes. So in today's society, the government has put in policies and legal practices that protect women in businesses from discriminating. And even though these laws are in place, there is still that gender pay gap. And I think one of the big reasons is that social norm that women are assumed to be the primary caregiver and their main role is to raise children. So when they take off time to, care for the baby, they are potentially affecting that pay gap. So back in the times, women weren't expected to work outside of the home. They weren't as educated as men were. They didn't really have an option to get a career. Like, it was out of question for them to even think about wanting a career. And then back then it was legal for companies to put male-only positions, and that has definitely changed since then. Nowadays, it is illegal to advertise male-only position, and this is just that whole gender equality that we're trying to work towards too. And so I think the biggest thing about this gender pay gap is just that women are expected to have children. And there is a study that found that both a man and a woman started at the same pay within the same career with the same education and same experience, but as soon as that woman started having children, that pay gap changed, and that was just because the woman was stepping out of their role and they were missing out on promotions, they were missing out on career progressions opportunities. And there's a thing out there that's called motherhood penalty, which is just that women are paid less because society tells them that they have to care for children. So as long as I feel like this norm still exists, that gender pay gap will still continue to exist. There was a study done by Golden, and she discovered that while society is influencing this pay gap, women are also influencing them, because when they go out and seek for jobs, they are looking for jobs that are flexible, jobs that are able to accommodate their needs. So if they need to leave early or take a day off to take care of the kids, they're able to. And because of that, these jobs that they take on are low earning per the hour of what a man would make. And just some examples of different pay gaps within different countries. So in Iceland, in 1975, women did a protest against gender pay gap. They thought that they weren't getting paid enough for what they were doing, and they were doing the same thing that a man was doing. So they protested, and soon enough, companies realized that they couldn't keep the business open without these women, so they increased their pay. And which led to 1981, they had their first female prime minister. And then 3 months later, they passed a law that they had 3 months maternity leave, so women were able to leave for 3 months paid. In 1988, this was extended to 6 months, which was a big controversy just because it encouraged women to stay home, which again reinforced that social norm. And again, some women might have liked it, other women did not, because they didn't want that 6 month, or they didn't need that 6 month. In 2000, they introduced that paternity leave it as use it or lose it. You either use your maternity leave or you lose your maternity leave. And they apply this to both men and women, which kind of led to that equal opportunity. And then in 2004, the woman earned 81 cents per every dollar that the man earned. And then now, women earn 90 cents per every dollar that the man earns. And then going over to Rwanda, this is one of the poorest nations on earth. In 1994, they had this huge genocide where they killed over 100,000 people. Most of that population was men. So what really became of that population was 60 to 70% women. So because there's only women left, they were forced to kind of work in the workforce to continue on. And then as they went on, the government realized that in order to rebuild, they needed women in power. So now they have it to where equal rights, men and women, by law, there needs to be 30% of representatives must be a woman. And even now, about 61% of the seats in the government are women. And in that state, women now make 86 cents per the dollar of the man makes. So overall, I just think that women should have the right to be a mother without being penalized at work. I do agree that if you step out, you're not there, you're not working, that it's understandable that you miss those opportunities, but I still think that women have the right to, or it's fair that they are still able to get the same opportunities when they are there. Going on to section 2, we're going to be, in our own words, describe what gender inequality means to you and how you can reduce it within your day-to-day life. So I think gender inequality means to me is just that the unequal treatment between men and women, female and male, simply based on their gender. So when I see gender inequality, I see it in homes. It can happen in schools, in church, in communities. It can happen at work. In textbooks, you see gender inequality. It's displayed in television, in media, and movies. And for me, I just think this gender inequality is just the idea that women are supposed to do one thing and men are supposed to do the one thing. And it's just like males can't do this and females can't do this. So for example, just the idea that men don't cry and women cannot be tough. So I just think this is just such a big gender inequality, because just because you're a female does not mean you can't be tough. And just because you're a male does not mean you can't cry. And then just another thing too is just the way people dress. I think this is just a great example of how I can reduce gender inequality, as day to day. It's just people are going to dress differently, styles are different. And I think it's important that we don't judge people by what they wear, For example, women wear dresses and men cannot. And I just think it's important to be able to allow everyone to express themselves, and dressing is a way to express themselves, and it shouldn't be unequal that men can do this and women can, and women can do something and men can. So some of the things that I put on here, for example, for gender inequality is, growing up, I was, my grandmother had that thing where women did all the cooking, the cleaning, and tend to the men, while the men were the ones that works, makes rules. And I think this is just such a big gender inequality, because it's the idea that women are only good for that stuff and men are only good for one thing. And I think that's unfair. And in today's society, I think that's gone from, and I feel like people are just kind of going away from that and practicing more of that 50-50 equality. For example, me and my boyfriend, we, both bring in this income. We both do the chores. We both do grocery shopping. Like, we're both able to do the same thing. And section 3, we're just going to go over how might changes in gender roles and stereotypes affect our lives today, tomorrow, and in your lifetime. Explain why the future looks hopeful. So I think changes in social norms of society, it changes just from what our ancestors believe in. So I think this affects a lot of women doing men's positions and vice versa. So for example, construction, you're starting to see a lot of more women in construction jobs because this is becoming socially acceptable. Engineering jobs, I know a lot of friends that I went to high school with that have graduated in engineering jobs and are doing what is considered a man's job. Same thing with healthcare. Healthcare is known to be a woman's job just because it's more of that caring, that caregiver role, but yet you are seeing a lot of men in the healthcare industry as well. And then another thing that I've noticed too with just the gender roles is the idea of like child custody. Nowadays, you're starting to see a lot of more men getting custody over the women just because they're starting to see that gender equality. And then just overall, I just think the future looks bright just because of the idea that we're going away from stereotyping, and just because they're a woman or a man doesn't mean they're capable. And we're giving everyone that equal opportunity to be able to express themselves and be able to be themselves and just be able to do what they want rather than being told based on their gender. And I think some great examples of why the future looks bright is just, for example, Kamala Harris becoming the first woman in office. So this was the first big thing in the United States, and that comes to explain how gender roles have changed. Now we're seeing women in office, and I think that's important for the future just because it allows for equal rights. So we're seeing more women in leadership roles as well. If you go to a hospital, you're starting to see more managers that are females, starting just to see more females in general take on that role of what is considered a man's role again. And then very last thing, when we're looking at it from a man's perspective, I think it's important to also see that men are also given the right to take time off to take care for the children rather than the female. And I think that's important too, because not only is it important for the mom to bond with the kid, it's also important for the father to bond with the kid. But that's it for my presentation. I appreciate your time and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.